Something wicked this way stumbles, and it comes wearing a cracked porcelain mask, towering over its victims, dripping in blood, and carrying a shovel it is not afraid to use in the most jaw-dropping way imaginable. Rod Blackhurst's Dolly made its world premiere at Fantastic Fest before arriving in theaters on the 6th of March 2026, and horror fans who have been starving for a midnight crowd slasher with genuine nastiness finally have something to sink their teeth into. The film is an 8 2-minute throwback to the Grindhouse era, shot entirely on 16mm film, and it wears its obsession with Tobe Hooper's 1974 landmark, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like a badge of honor sometimes to its credit, and sometimes to its detriment. The story opens on Chase, played by Seann William Scott, giddy and trembling with nerves as he prepares to propose to his girlfriend Macy, played by Fabienne Terez, during a hike through the mountains of Chattanooga, Tennessee. The trail to their chosen scenic overlook is unsettling from the start. Antique dolls nailed to trees, others half swallowed by mud, dozens more arranged in ritualistic patterns across the forest floor. The couple presses on. Then, just as Chase is about to get down on one knee, a music box begins to warble somewhere deep in the woods. They investigate. That decision cost them everything. What they find is Dolly, brought to terrifying life by NWA wrestler Max the Impaler, a non-binary and transmasculine performer whose towering frame makes the character immediately, physically oppressive. Dolly communicates only in infantile squeaks and grunts, peers through the cracked cupola of an enormous porcelain doll mask, and moves with a lurching physicality that draws comparisons to Art the Clown, while remaining rooted in the legacy of Leatherface. Her fingers are perpetually twisted in neonatal knots and perpetually caked in the blood of her victims. She is, by any measure, hideous in the most effective way a movie monster can be. The violence arrives fast and without apology. Chase's first encounter with Dolly produces a sequence that has already become the most talked-about moment in the film. She hoists him by the neck, snaps his shin with a shovel, and then uses that same shovel to pry his jaw loose from his skull. The practical gore effects are stunning, the kind of lovingly crafted body horror that draws midnight crowds out of their homes and into dark theaters. It is gloriously, enthusiastically revolting, and it arrives so early in the runtime that the film spends the rest of its running time trying, and only occasionally succeeding, to match that peak. With Chase left incapacitated and improbably alive in the woods, Dolly turns her attention to Macy. After Macy's escape attempt ends with her skull meeting a rock, she wakes inside an oversized crib in a rotting, decomposing room designed to resemble a child's nursery. The set design is one of the film's genuine triumphs. Dolly's home radiates a tangible, almost olfactory wrongness, mold, mildew, and decades of biological decay layered into every wall and surface. A disembodied voice from behind the wall tells Macy she will have to play Dolly's game if she wants to survive. And from that point forward, the film becomes a gauntlet of horror genre set pieces, force feedings of curdled milk and rancid baby food, diaper changes staged as acts of humiliation, and a series of failed escape attempts that cycle through tropes with mechanical efficiency. The sound design deserves particular attention. Every bone crack and fleshy impact is rendered with a commitment to physical authenticity that makes each moment of violence register in the body rather than just the eyes. The 16mm grain adds a layer of grime and legitimacy that digital photography could not replicate, and the film's overall technical execution consistently outpaces its screenplay. Blackhurst expands on his own 2022 short film, Baby Girl, with Dolly. But critics have noted that the expansion feels modest. There is not much fat on the film, but there is also, as more than one reviewer has observed, not much meat on it either. Scott delivers more than the role might suggest on paper. Chase spends the majority of the film separated from Macy, dragging himself through the woods toward Dolly's house, wearing the aftermath of his opening injuries in increasingly brutal and, at moments, darkly comic ways. The American Pie actor brings an unexpected pathos to a physical performance that has already generated significant discussion among early audiences. Therese, meanwhile, proves a charismatic and compelling lead through circumstances that would flatten a lesser performance. She earns sympathy and carries momentum through the film's most punishing stretches. Blackhurst structures the film in 7 chapters, a decision that has divided critics. The intent appears to be a dark fairy tale framing, reinforced by a rhyming verse that opens the picture and gestures toward Dolly's origins as a victimized girl who retreated behind a mask. That verse represents nearly the entirety of the backstory the film provides. Press materials confirm that a sequel or prequel exploring Dolly's origins is already written and in development, which raises the obvious question of why that material was withheld from this film in the first place. The chapter structure, meanwhile, has been widely described as an unnecessary affectation that distracts more than it enriches. The film's homages to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre range from loving to egregious. Macy's plunge through a second-story window, the interior architecture of Dolly's home replicating the layout of Hooper's iconic farmhouse, and the final frames of the film are all lifted with near-direct fidelity from the source material. Blackhurst clearly reveres Massacre as a sacred text, and Dolly functions as a devoted commentary on it, but commentary is not the same as creation, and the film's most persistent weakness is its reluctance to venture beyond the borders of its inspiration. Some critics have also raised questions about the film's gender politics, noting that Macy's protracted suffering, while not gratuitous in its presentation, lacks the interrogative dimension that might elevate it beyond endurance cinema. The fact that Macy's tormentor is also a woman adds a layer of complexity the film does not fully explore. Blackhurst frames the sequences carefully enough that they avoid feeling exploitative, but the cumulative effect of cycling through torture tropes without commentary or innovation invites scrutiny that the film is not fully equipped to answer. What Dolly ultimately delivers is a well-executed but narrowly conceived piece of midnight cinema technically accomplished, occasionally viscerally thrilling, built on a foundation of reverence that both gives it shape and limits its reach. It is, by most accounts, a genuinely fun time for genre devotees willing to meet it on its own terms, and it leaves just enough goodwill in reserve to make the prospect of a follow-up appealing. Whether that follow-up will take the risks this film avoids remains the central open question surrounding Rod Blackhurst's horror universe. So here is what we want to know. Are you brave enough to sit through Dolly's game, or does the porcelain mask already have you reaching for the lights? Drop your answer in the comments. Let us know whether you caught it at Fantastic Fest or plan to find it in theaters. And if this kind of deep dive horror coverage is what you come here for, hit like and subscribe, so you never miss what is coming next. The woods are full of music boxes. We will keep listening.